The fluorescent lights of Terminal 3 at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport hummed with their usual monotonous buzz as thousands of travelers shuffled through security checkpoints, their faces etched with the exhaustion that comes from early morning departures and delayed connections. But on this particular Tuesday morning, one woman was about to turn an ordinary travel day into an absolute nightmare for everyone around her. Her name was Patricia Hendricks, though she'd soon be known by airport staff as something far less polite. And what she was about to do would be captured on 17 different security cameras, documented by 4 gate agents, witnessed by 63 passengers, and become the most talked about incident at DFW in over a decade. Because Patricia didn't just have a bad day at the airport. She orchestrated one, planned it down to the minute, and executed it with the kind of cold calculation that would make you question everything you thought you knew about entitled travelers. This is the story of how one woman's desperate need for attention, compensation, and control led her to commit what airport security would later describe as one of the most manipulative schemes they'd ever encountered. And it all started with a passport that was never actually lost. Patricia stood near gate B17, her designer luggage arranged perfectly beside her Louboutin heels, her blonde highlights catching the harsh airport lighting in a way that seemed almost theatrical. She was 52 years old, but her Botoxed forehead and carefully contoured makeup aimed for 35. Her Louis Vuitton carry-on probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and she made sure everyone knew it by the way she positioned it, logo facing outward, always visible. She checked her Apple Watch for the 3rd time in as many minutes. 9:47 a.m. Her flight to Cancun didn't board for another hour, but Patricia wasn't concerned about making her flight. She was concerned about timing. Everything had to be timed perfectly. She'd been planning this for 2 weeks, ever since her last complaint to the airline had been dismissed, ever since they'd refused to upgrade her to first class despite her frequent flyer status, ever since they'd had the audacity to tell her that business class was full and she'd have to endure economy like a common traveler. The thought made her jaw clench. Patricia Hendricks did not fly economy. Patricia Hendricks did not accept no for an answer, and Patricia Hendricks was about to teach this airline a lesson they'd never forget. She glanced around the gate area, mentally cataloging her audience. A young mother struggling with 2 toddlers and a diaper bag near the charging station. Perfect witness, Patricia thought. Someone who'd sympathize with a fellow woman in distress. An elderly couple sharing a crossword puzzle, their wheeled suitcases parked neatly beside them. Elderly people always sided with someone claiming victimhood. A businessman in a rumpled suit, already annoyed by something on his laptop. Easy to agitate further. And scattered throughout, dozens of other passengers. All tired, all irritable, all potential allies in the chaos she was about to create. Patricia reached into her Hermes Birkin bag, her fingers closing around the familiar textured cover of her passport. She'd checked it obsessively since leaving home, not because she was afraid of losing it, but because she needed to know exactly where it was for what came next. She pulled it out smoothly, keeping it low and close to her body where the overhead cameras couldn't get a clear angle. This was the crucial moment. Her heart rate quickened slightly, not from nervousness, but from excitement. She'd rehearsed this movement in her hotel bathroom mirror 20 times. With a casual motion that would look perfectly natural to anyone glancing her way, Patricia slid her passport into the interior zippered compartment of her carry-on, then tucked it deeper, beneath a silk scarf and a makeup bag. She zipped the compartment closed, ran her hand over the exterior to ensure everything looked undisturbed. And then, with the satisfied smile of someone who'd just armed a trap, she pulled out her phone and opened her social media. Step 1 complete. Now she just had to wait for the perfect moment to detonate the bomb she'd just set. The gate agent's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing that boarding for Flight 2847 to Cancun would begin in approximately 45 minutes. Patricia's smile widened. 45 minutes was plenty of time to create absolute chaos. Patricia spent the next 20 minutes carefully constructing her narrative on her phone. She typed out a draft post for her social media followers, describing her nightmare experience with an airline that had lost important passenger documents. She added hashtags, selected the most flattering photo of herself looking distressed, and saved it all as a draft. She'd posted at exactly the right moment for maximum sympathy and engagement. Everything was a performance for Patricia, and she'd learned long ago that the court of public opinion was far more powerful than any customer service department. She glanced up occasionally, watching the flow of airport staff, noting which gate agents looked overwhelmed, which security personnel were patrolling nearby, and which passengers were paying attention to their surroundings. She needed witnesses who'd remember her as the victim, not the perpetrator. A harried-looking gate agent named Marcus was manning the desk at B-17, and Patricia could see the exhaustion in his shoulders. He'd been dealing with a delayed flight from Houston, angry passengers demanding explanations, and a computer system that kept freezing at the worst possible moments. Perfect, Patricia thought. He's already stressed. This will push him over the edge, and when staff lose their composure, they look bad. She looks like the reasonable one. The young mother with the toddlers was now struggling to open a juice box, while simultaneously preventing her 3-year-old from running toward the windows. Patricia watched with calculated interest. That woman would be so grateful if someone stood up and caused enough of a scene to delay boarding, giving her more time to get organized. Another potential ally. The businessman had now moved on to an aggressive phone conversation about quarterly earnings, his voice rising enough that nearby passengers were shooting him annoyed looks. Tension was already high in this gate area. Patricia was just going to amplify it to explosive levels. She checked her watch again. 10:15 a.m., 30 minutes until boarding. It was time. Patricia stood up, making a show of gathering her belongings, checking her pockets, patting down her jacket. Her movements became increasingly frantic, each gesture larger and more dramatic than the last. She opened her Birkin bag and began rifling through it, pulling out a wallet, a lipstick, her phone, a charging cable, sunglasses, a packet of tissues, laying each item on the seat beside her with increasing urgency. No, she muttered, just loud enough for nearby passengers to hear, but quiet enough to sound like she was talking to herself. The elderly woman doing the crossword puzzle looked up, concern creasing her features. Is everything all right, dear? She asked in a grandmotherly voice. Patricia ignored her, continuing her frantic search, now opening every compartment of her purse, her breathing becoming audibly faster. This was the art of the performance. Make them ask twice. Make them concerned before you even explain the problem. Honey, are you okay? The elderly woman asked again. Louder this time, touching her husband's arm to get his attention. Patricia looked up, and her face was a masterwork of controlled panic. Her eyes were wide, her mouth slightly open, her hand clutching her chest. If she'd been an actress, she'd have won an Oscar. My passport, she breathed, the words barely audible. My passport is gone. The elderly woman's face shifted from concern to alarm. Oh my goodness, are you sure? When did you last see it? Patricia's voice rose, gaining volume and hysteria with each word. I had it. I had it right here. I checked it at security. I always check it after security. I put it right back in my bag, right in this pocket. She jabbed at an exterior pocket of her Birkin, the empty one she'd deliberately left unzipped for visual effect. The businessman ended his call and looked over, irritated by the commotion. The young mother had paused in her struggle with the juice box, both toddlers momentarily forgotten as she watched the drama unfolding. Other passengers were beginning to notice, conversations trailing off, heads turning toward the well-dressed woman who was now frantically searching through her luggage. I need to find it. I need to find it right now. Patricia's voice climbed another octave, genuine-sounding desperation bleeding into every syllable. She dropped to her knees on the airport carpet, uncaring of her expensive outfit, and began pulling items from her carry-on. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, everything scattered across the gate area in a growing circle of chaos. But of course, she avoided the interior zippered compartment. That stayed closed, the passport safely hidden inside, exactly where she'd placed it. Miss, can I help you with something? Marcus, the gate agent, had noticed the commotion and approached with the wariness of someone who dealt with too many passenger meltdowns. His name tag caught the light as he leaned down slightly, trying to make eye contact with Patricia. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. Patricia looked up at him, and her eyes were suddenly glistening with tears that seemed to appear on command. My passport is missing. Someone took my passport. Marcus's expression shifted from concern to professional alarm. A missing passport was serious business, especially this close to boarding time. Okay, ma'am, let's stay calm and figure this out. When did you last have visual confirmation of your passport? His voice was trained, calm, the kind of measured tone airlines taught their employees for de-escalating situations. But Patricia didn't want de-escalation. She wanted escalation. She wanted chaos. She wanted witnesses and social media posts and compensation that would make her scheme worthwhile. "I had it at security," she insisted, her voice now loud enough that every passenger in the gate area could hear clearly. "I showed it to the TSA agent, and then I put it back in my bag. I'm meticulous about these things. I'm a frequent traveler. I know how to manage my documents." The implication hung in the air like smoke. If she was meticulous, if she was experienced, if she knew what she was doing, then the fault must lie elsewhere. Marcus nodded, pulling out his radio. "I'm going to call our supervisor in airport security. We'll help you locate it. In the meantime, can you retrace your steps? Where exactly did you go after clearing security?" Patricia stood up, brushing off her knees with sharp, angry movements. "I came straight here, straight to this gate. I sat down right there." She pointed at her seat. "I was watching my belongings the entire time, except—" She paused, and her pause was perfectly timed, perfectly calculated to draw maximum attention. "Except?" Marcus prompted. "Except when I went to use the restroom. I was gone for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 7, and when I came back my bag had been moved," the elderly woman gasped audibly. Several other passengers were now openly staring, their own carry-ons suddenly feeling vulnerable, their own valuables suddenly in question. If someone was stealing passports from gate areas, everyone was at risk. "Your bag was moved?" Marcus repeated, his professional calm beginning to show cracks. "Are you saying someone went through your belongings?" "I'm saying—" Patricia's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried better than her shouts. "That someone at this airport, either a passenger or staff, has stolen my passport. And I want it found. Now." The businessman stood up, instinctively checking his own bag. The young mother pulled her children closer, her diaper bag clutched protectively. The elderly couple exchanged worried glances. Marcus raised his radio, his free hand held up in a placating gesture. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Security at this airport is extensive. If someone did take your passport, we have cameras throughout the terminal. But first, let's make absolutely certain it's not in your possession somewhere. Sometimes documents slip into different pockets or compartments." Patricia's eyes flashed, and when she spoke, her voice could have cut glass. "Are you suggesting I don't know how to keep track of my own passport? Are you suggesting I'm incompetent?" "No, ma'am. I'm simply saying—" Marcus began, but Patricia talked over him, her volume rising with each word. "I am a gold-tier frequent flyer with this airline. I have flown over 200,000 miles. I have been to 43 countries. I think I know how to manage a passport." Her hands were on her hips now, her posture aggressive, her body language screaming confrontation. A small crowd was forming. Passengers from nearby gates were drifting over, drawn by the commotion like moths to a flame. Everyone loved airport drama when they weren't personally involved. Marcus's supervisor, a tired-looking woman named Jennifer with graying hair and 20 years of airline experience etched into the lines around her eyes, appeared with 2 airport security officers. "I understand there's a missing passport?" Jennifer's voice was professionally neutral, but her eyes were already assessing the situation, taking in Patricia's scattered belongings, the growing crowd, the potential for this to turn into a much bigger problem. "Not missing. Stolen," Patricia corrected sharply. "Stolen from this gate area while I briefly stepped away, and I want to know what this airline is going to do about it." Jennifer exchanged a glance with the security officers, and something unspoken passed between them. They'd seen this before. Maybe not this exact situation, but this type of passenger. The demanding tone, the absolute certainty, the immediate escalation to theft rather than simple misplacement. But they also knew that accusations of theft required investigation, documentation, and review of security footage. This wasn't something that could be dismissed easily, even if they suspected Patricia was mistaken or manufacturing drama. "Ma'am, we take theft allegations very seriously," one of the security officers said, pulling out a notepad. "I'm Officer Davis. Can you describe exactly what happened from the moment you arrived at this gate?" Patricia launched into her prepared narrative, each detail carefully crafted, each timeline point designed to sound credible. She described placing her bag on the seat, going to the restroom in Terminal B, returning to find her bag had been shifted slightly, checking her exterior pocket where she always kept her passport after clearing security, and discovering it was gone. She mentioned specific times, specific observations, even described what she'd been wearing when she went through security, all details that made her story sound more legitimate. Officer Davis wrote everything down, his face impassive. His partner, Officer Chen, was already on her radio, presumably requesting security footage review. Jennifer was trying to manage the growing crowd of concerned passengers, assuring them that this was an isolated incident and their belongings were safe. But the damage was done. Paranoia had spread through Gate B17 like a virus. Passengers were now sitting on their bags, clutching their documents, eyeing each other with suspicion. The businessman had moved his laptop bag between his feet. The young mother had zipped her diaper bag closed and wrapped one strap around her wrist. The elderly couple had pulled their suitcases so close they were practically barricaded behind them. Patricia surveyed the chaos she'd created and felt a surge of satisfaction. This was going exactly according to plan. But she wasn't done yet. Not even close. I need to speak to a manager. A real manager, not just a supervisor, Patricia demanded, her voice cutting through the murmur of anxious passengers. Someone who can authorize compensation for this nightmare. Jennifer's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but her voice remained professionally calm. Ma'am, I am the gate supervisor, and I assure you we're taking every step to resolve this situation. Officer Davis and Officer Chen will review our security footage to see if we can determine what happened to your passport. Patricia laughed, but there was no humor in it. Security footage, right. And how long is that going to take? An hour? 2 hours? My flight board's in 25 minutes. Are you going to delay the entire flight while you conduct your investigation? Passengers who had been anxiously watching now groaned audibly. A delayed flight. This was every traveler's nightmare. Missed connections, canceled hotel reservations, lost vacation time. The businessman checked his watch and cursed under his breath. The young mother looked like she might cry at the thought of keeping her toddlers entertained during an extended delay. We're not delaying the flight at this time, Jennifer said carefully. But her eyes flickered to Marcus, and both of them knew what was coming. Patricia couldn't board without a passport, but if they delayed boarding to investigate, 273 other passengers would suffer. So you're going to leave without me? Patricia's voice hit a pitch that could probably shatter the terminal windows. You're going to let someone steal my passport, refuse to investigate properly, and then just abandon me here? Officer Chen stepped forward, her expression neutral but her voice carrying authority. Ma'am, no one is abandoning you, but we need to be thorough. I've already requested footage from the cameras covering this gate area for the last hour. Our security office is pulling it now. If someone did go through your bag, we'll see it. If? Patricia seized on the word like a predator spotting weakness. If someone went through my bag? Are you suggesting I'm lying? That's not what Officer Chen said, Officer Davis interjected smoothly. But we do need to verify all possibilities. In situations like this, we found that passports often turn up in unexpected places. Different pockets, fallen between seats, accidentally placed in someone else's bag. Patricia's eyes widened with fresh outrage. So now you're saying I put my passport in someone else's bag? That I'm not just incompetent but completely senile? The elderly woman who had first expressed concern now looked uncomfortable, as if realizing this situation was spiraling beyond normal lost document stress into something more theatrical. Officer Chen's radio crackled, and she stepped away to take the call, speaking in low tones while Patricia continued her tirade. Jennifer was now on her phone, presumably calling her district manager, because this situation was rapidly approaching the level that required corporate involvement. Marcus had retreated behind the gate desk, looking like he wished he could retreat even further, perhaps to a different terminal entirely. The businessman approached Officer Davis cautiously. Look, I don't want to cause more problems, but if we're going to be delayed, I need to know. I have a connecting flight in Cancun. If I miss it because of this... He let the threat hang unfinished, but the implication was clear. Lawsuits, complaints, more problems for the airline. Officer Davis nodded grimly. We're moving as fast as we can, sir. Patricia, overhearing this exchange, saw an opportunity. She turned to the businessman, her expression shifting from outrage to something more calculated, more sympathetic. I'm so sorry you're being affected by this. We're all victims here. Victims of inadequate security, of a system that doesn't protect travelers, of an airline that cares more about its schedule than about justice. The businessman didn't look particularly sympathetic to Patricia's plight, but he nodded tersely. united with her in their shared frustration with the situation, if nothing else. Other passengers were beginning to voice their concerns now. A woman traveling alone asked if she should report her bag having been unattended during her coffee run. A family of 4 wanted to know if their passports should be checked to ensure they hadn't been tampered with. A honeymooning couple near the windows were arguing in hushed whispers about whether they should try to change to a different flight. The paranoia Patricia had seeded was blooming into full-scale anxiety. Officer Chen returned, her expression carefully neutral. "Ma'am, we've reviewed the preliminary footage from the camera covering this seating area. We can see you arriving at the gate at approximately 9:43 a.m., placing your bags on seat 17B and sitting down. We can see you using your phone for approximately 18 minutes. At 10:02 a.m., you stood up and walked toward the restrooms, leaving your carry-on on the seat. You returned at 10:09, a 7-minute absence, and sat back down. Your carry-on does not appear to have been disturbed during your absence." Patricia's face flushed red, but not from embarrassment, from rage that her narrative was being contradicted. "Doesn't appear to have been disturbed? Someone could have gone through it quickly. Your cameras might not show the detail. Did you see someone approach my bag? Did you see someone touch it? The footage shows no one approaching your bag during your absence," Officer Chen said firmly. "Additionally, we've now reviewed footage from the security checkpoint. After clearing TSA at 9:28 a.m., you can be seen collecting your belongings from the X-ray conveyor, including your passport. You placed your passport in your bag. But ma'am..." Officer Chen paused, and her pause carried weight. "The bag you placed your passport in appears to be your carry-on luggage, not your purse." Patricia's eyes flickered, just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Anyone watching closely would have seen it, the momentary panic of someone whose story was being picked apart by inconvenient facts. But she recovered quickly, her decades of manipulation experience kicking in. "Yes, I put it in my carry-on initially, but then I transferred it to my purse, to the exterior pocket where I always keep it during travel. Obviously, the cameras didn't capture that if you're not seeing someone steal it." "Ma'am," Officer Davis said carefully, "would you be willing to do a thorough search of all your bags, with us present as witnesses, to ensure the passport isn't in a different pocket or compartment than you remember?" This was the moment Patricia had been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. If she refused, she looked guilty. If she agreed, she had to be very, very careful. "Fine," Patricia snapped, snatching her Birkin bag and holding it up. "Search it. Search everything. You'll see it's not here." She dumped the contents of her purse onto the seat with aggressive flourish. Wallet, lipstick, phone, sunglasses, tissues, breath mints, a small bottle of hand sanitizer, earbuds, a travel-size perfume, and at least a dozen receipts scattered across the upholstery. "See? No passport." Officer Chen nodded patiently. "And your carry-on, please." Patricia's jaw clenched, but she bent down and began pulling items from the main compartment of her Louis Vuitton luggage. Clothes came out first, carefully folded outfits for a week in Cancun, then shoes wrapped in cloth bags, a toiletry kit, already screened by TSA, a tablet in a leather case, a magazine, a travel pillow, a small umbrella. Everything was laid out on the seats around her, a material spread of an affluent traveler's necessities. "Check the pockets," Officer Davis instructed, and his voice was still professional. But there was something else there now. Suspicion. Officer Chen was watching Patricia's face more than her hands. She'd been doing this job for 12 years, and she'd developed an instinct for when someone was performing rather than panicking. Patricia made a show of opening each exterior pocket, turning them inside out, demonstrating their emptiness, but her hands carefully avoided the interior zippered compartment. She moved around it, checking other sections, creating the visual impression of thoroughness, while strategically excluding the one place that mattered. Officer Chen noticed. "Ma'am, there's a zippered interior compartment you haven't checked." Patricia's hand froze for just a heartbeat. "That compartment is for valuables. I wouldn't have put my passport in there. I need easy access to it during travel." "Nevertheless, let's check every possible location," Officer Chen said, and her voice left no room for argument. The crowd of passengers was now absolutely silent. The young mother had abandoned all pretense of managing her children, letting them play on the floor with their toys while she watched the drama unfold. The elderly couple was leaning forward, hands clasped together. The businessman had his phone out, possibly recording, possibly just ready to document whatever happened next for his own complaint filing purposes. Patricia's hand moved to the interior zipper with exaggerated slowness, as if reluctant to waste time on such an obviously futile search. Her fingers gripped the zipper pull. Her mind raced through her options. If she found the passport now, she'd look foolish but could pivot to claiming she'd been so stressed she'd forgotten where she put it. She could still complain about the airline's treatment of her, about being made to feel like a criminal, about the public humiliation. It wouldn't be the triumphant compensation scheme she'd envisioned, but it was an exit strategy. But if she found the passport, all the chaos, all the planning, all the carefully crafted performance would be for nothing. No social media outrage, no viral story, no free flights or upgrades or groveling apologies from corporate. Patricia made her decision. She unzipped the compartment, reached inside, and pulled out the silk scarf on top. Then the makeup bag. Her hand brushed against the textured passport cover beneath, and she knew the officers could probably see the edge of it in the partially open compartment. But she withdrew her hand empty, holding up the makeup bag as if to say, "See? Nothing." Officer Chen stepped closer. "Ma'am, is that your passport I can see in that compartment?" Every eye in the gate area focused on the Louis Vuitton carry-on, on the open zipper, on the dark blue corner of what was unmistakably a United States passport visible against the tan lining of the bag. Patricia's face went through a fascinating journey of expressions. Shock, confusion, relief, and then, when she realized how this looked, defensive outrage. That wasn't there before. Someone must have put it back. Someone went through my bag, stole my passport, and then returned it when they realized they were being investigated. The silence that followed her statement was deafening. Not a single passenger looked convinced. The elderly woman was shaking her head slowly. The businessman had definitely started recording. Even the toddlers had stopped playing, as if sensing the absurdity of what they'd just witnessed. Officer Davis cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we've reviewed the security footage. No one approached your bag during your absence. If your passport is in that compartment now, it was there the entire time." Patricia snatched the passport from the compartment, clutching it to her chest like a found treasure, but her eyes were wild, her story crumbling, her performance falling apart. "I don't understand. I checked this bag. I checked it thoroughly. It must have been wedged under something. The makeup bag must have been concealing it. This is your fault for not helping me search properly the first time." Jennifer, who had been watching the entire exchange with the weary expression of someone who'd seen every trick in the book, stepped forward. "Ma'am, you made very serious accusations of theft. You created a significant disturbance. You've stressed out every passenger in this gate area, and now we've discovered your passport was in your possession the entire time, in a location you specifically avoided checking during your initial search." Patricia's voice rose to a near shriek. "Are you accusing me of lying? Of staging this? I am the victim here. My bag was tampered with. My passport was moved. You people are incompetent, and instead of helping me, you're attacking me." Officer Chen pulled out her notepad. "Ma'am, based on the security footage and the evidence here, we need to have a more detailed conversation about what occurred. Would you please come with us to the security office?" "No," Patricia said flatly. "Absolutely not. I'm not going anywhere. My flight boards in 15 minutes and I'm getting on it. You found my passport. That's all that matters. This situation is resolved." Officer Davis shook his head. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a crime. Making false accusations of theft is a crime. Creating a public disturbance is grounds for removal from the flight. We need to investigate whether any of those criteria have been met." The color drained from Patricia's face as she realized the trap she'd built for herself was closing around her, instead of around the airline. "You can't remove me from my flight. I have rights. I'm a paying passenger. I have a vacation planned. You have no grounds to—" "We have every ground," Jennifer interrupted, her professional patience finally exhausted. "You created a false emergency. You wasted security resources. You've disrupted this entire gate. And based on Officer Chen's review of the security footage, you deliberately avoided checking the compartment where your passport was located during your initial search, suggesting you knew where it was all along." The businessman who'd been recording stepped forward. "I got the whole thing on video. Her reaching around that compartment, checking everything else, then acting shocked when they found it. I'll absolutely testify if needed. I'm missing my connection because of this nonsense." Other passengers voiced their agreement. The young mother with the toddlers raised her hand. I saw her acting weird before she even started looking for her passport. She kept checking her watch like she was waiting for something. It felt rehearsed. The elderly woman, who'd initially been so concerned, now looked at Patricia with profound disappointment. You made me worry. You made everyone here worry. You made us all feel unsafe. Why would you do something like that? Patricia looked around at the circle of hostile faces, at the passengers she'd tried to manipulate into being her witnesses now turning into her accusers. Her mouth opened and closed, searching for words, for explanations, for some way to regain control of a narrative that had completely escaped her grasp. It was an honest mistake. I forgot where I put it. The stress of travel, of the early morning, I got confused. I'm sorry if I overreacted, but anyone would be upset if they thought their passport was stolen. Officer Chen wasn't buying it. Ma'am, you didn't say you misplaced your passport. You specifically stated it was stolen. You accused other passengers or staff of theft. You demanded compensation. And you avoided checking the one location where your passport actually was. That's not confusion. That's deliberate. Patricia's designer handbag slipped from her fingers, hitting the airport carpet with a thud that seemed to echo in the suddenly silent gate area. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the panic in her eyes now. Real panic, not the performed kind. You're twisting everything. I'm the victim here. You're ganging up on me. This is harassment. I'm going to sue the airline. I'm going to sue all of you. Jennifer pulled out her own phone, typing rapidly. Ma'am, as of this moment, you're being denied boarding on flight 2847. Your ticket is being flagged in our system. You'll need to rebook, and given this incident, that's going to require clearance from our corporate security department. You can't do that. Patricia's voice cracked, the polish of her performance shattering completely. I have a vacation planned. I have hotel reservations. I have activities booked. You're ruining my trip. You ruined your own trip, Officer Davis said bluntly. And you wasted approximately 45 minutes of security resources, airline staff time, and the patience of every person in this gate area. You're going to need to come with us to file an official report about this incident. The gate intercom crackled to life, and Marcus's voice, shaky but determined, announced the boarding process for flight 2847. Passengers began lining up, shooting glances at Patricia as they passed. Some looked angry. Some looked satisfied at the karma they were witnessing. Some just looked tired and ready to get away from the drama. The businessman, waiting in the priority boarding line, paused to address the officers. I've emailed myself the video. If you need a witness statement, I'm in seat 4A. I'll provide my contact information before we take off. Officer Chen nodded gratefully. Thank you, sir. We may follow up. As passengers filtered onto the jet bridge, their relief at escaping the chaos palpable, Patricia remained in the now emptying gate area, flanked by the two security officers, facing Jennifer's disappointed expression and Marcus's carefully neutral one. This isn't fair, Patricia said, but her voice had lost its conviction. She sounded deflated now, the air gone out of her outrage. I made a mistake. That's all. A simple mistake. A simple mistake doesn't involve checking every compartment except the one where you knew your passport was located, Officer Chen said. A simple mistake doesn't involve immediately accusing others of theft. A simple mistake doesn't involve demanding compensation before the investigation even began. Patricia's eyes welled with tears, real ones this time. Tears of frustration and humiliation, rather than her earlier performed distress. You don't understand. I fly all the time. I'm always treated poorly, stuck in the back of the plane, ignored by flight attendants, made to pay for bags. I just wanted to be treated with respect for once. I just wanted an upgrade. I just wanted them to care. Jennifer's expression softened slightly, not with sympathy, but with the sad recognition of someone who'd heard variations of this confession dozens of times. Ma'am, the way to get respect is to be respectful. The way to get good service is to be a good passenger. What you did today was the opposite of that. You made people afraid. You wasted resources. You lied. And now you're facing consequences. Officer Davis gestured toward the security corridor. We need to go to the office and document this incident. Depending on how cooperative you are, and whether you're willing to admit what happened, we can determine if charges will be filed, or if this will remain an internal airline matter with your name flagged in their system. Patricia gathered her scattered belongings with shaking hands, shoving clothes and toiletries back into her Louis Vuitton carry-on without any of the care she'd displayed earlier. Her Birkin bag was repacked haphazardly, expensive items tossed in without ceremony. The designer luggage that had been positioned so carefully for display now looked like what it was. Just bags, just things. Markers of wealth but not of character. As they walked away from Gate B17, Patricia looked back once at the now empty seating area where her scheme had imploded so spectacularly. The businessman's words echoed in her mind. "I got the whole thing on video." Social media had been her weapon of choice, the platform she'd planned to use to amplify her fake victimhood into viral outrage. Now it would be her downfall. By the time they reached the security office, Patricia's phone was already buzzing with notifications. Someone had already posted about the incident. The hashtags weren't the ones she'd prepared. They weren't sympathetic. They were mocking, scathing, karma celebrating. The security office was small, windowless, and smelled faintly of burnt coffee and recycled air. Patricia sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair across from Officer Chen, who was typing up her report with methodical precision. Officer Davis stood near the door, arms crossed, his presence a reminder that Patricia wasn't free to leave until this process was complete. A monitor on the wall showed various angles of airport security footage, and Patricia could see her own image on one screen, frozen in the moment when Officer Chen had asked her to check the interior compartment of her bag. Even in the grainy security footage, her body language was telling: the hesitation, the strategic avoidance, the performance. Jennifer had returned to manage the gate, but she'd sent over Patricia's complete travel record, and it painted an interesting,